community, it's me, JC, back again. Hopefully everybody's doing well. I am doing great. It's been a good week. Before we get started, I'd like to give a shout out to The Music Trip. It's a great channel. I love watching his videos. And he actually did a really cool thing the other day. He did one of my 3 amazing and awful cover art videos. And he did Metallica, Blink-182, and Green Day. So cool, so killer. Loved your video. The Music Trip. Go check him out. He's the best. All right, guys. So today we are going to do tips on thrifting. I'm going to give you 5 tips on thrifting for records. Before we get started, if you like my videos, please remember to hit the like and subscribe button. If you smash that bell, you'll be notified every single time I drop a video. So, some of you may not know this, but back in the day, I used to own a vintage clothing store. So I used to thrift for a living. My business became so successful at the time that I left my job to just do that. It was an amazing time in my life where I was essentially thrifting for a living. I was going to yard sales, flea markets, thrift stores, consignment stores, trying to find vintage clothing at a low price and reselling it. And you know, during that same time period, I was always buying records for myself. But the thrifting tips for that essentially are pretty much the same that I use for records. Now that I no longer do that, I still employ those same techniques to kind of support my hobby. And I'm going to run through some of those techniques for you right now. Because a lot of times, you know, every Vinyl Finds video, if you go look at the message, someone goes, oh, I wish I had these thrift stores in my area. Oh, you have such great luck. Well, there is actually a method to my madness. There is a plan in place that I have that allows me, you know, because it's not always successful. And I run into all the same polka albums. And I run into all the same Herb Albert albums that you guys do. But these techniques certainly help me. So the first thing I do is I plan a route. Okay, so what I try to do is maximize. If I'm going to drive, I try to maximize how many places I can go to in a particular time frame. So to give you an example, I live between Providence and Boston, 2 big metropolitan cities. So there's a lot of thrift stores. So I may start at my local thrift store, which is in New Bedford, Massachusetts, and then I can drive to Fall River, which is a city a couple towns over where they have another thrift store. Then there's a small Salvation Army in a small town next to that called Somerset. Then there are 2 thrift stores in Providence. Then there is a thrift store in Attleboro, which is near where the Patriots play. Then there's one in Norwood. And I'm essentially doing a circle where I'm going to hit 10 to 12 thrift stores in one day. And generally, if I'm going to make a trip like that, that would be on the weekend because obviously it's allotted the most time. So plan a route and stick to it. And the reason why I say stick to it is because it's easy to get discouraged. You go to 2 thrift stores, you don't find anything, you're like, the heck with this, I'm going to give up. I stick through it. Even if I'm having no luck, even if I go through the whole route and I don't buy one thing, I know that if I keep playing this game, I'm eventually going to find something. So that's my number 5 tip. My number 4 tip is find out the days and the hours they put out merchandise. How do you do this? You talk to somebody. It's extremely important. So if you find out that your local thrift store does not put out merchandise on Sunday or Monday, don't go on those days. If you find out your local thrift store only puts out merchandise between the hours of 10 a.m. and 5 p.m., even though they're open till 9, which is very common, because the crew that puts out the merchandise goes home, they only work day shifts, then don't go after 5 p.m. Only go out to the thrift store when they're putting out merchandise. That is crucial because you have to figure that some thrift stores I know do not put out merchandise on Sunday whatsoever. So if they stop putting merchandise out at 5 p.m. on a Saturday and you go Sunday at 3 p.m., that means all of those hours, if they had put anything out late Saturday, there's a good chance it's already gone. Right? So find out the schedule in the days that they put out merchandise. And that is crucial to your success for thrifting. Number 3, ask before you leave if they're going to put out more records. Find a sales associate and ask them, say, hey, I was just looking at the records. Are you going to put out any more today? If you build a rapport with these folks, they'll tell you. I ask even if I found stuff. So let's say I go and I hit the honeypot. There's like 10 records that I love, and I grab all 10. As soon as I'm done looking through the records, I go find somebody with the big stack of records in my hand, and I say, hey, I just noticed that, you put out some great records. Are you going to be putting out any more records? And sometimes they'll say, yeah, we're still pricing them, but we're going to put it out. And I'll stick around the store and wait for them to put out more records. Or if they say, yeah, it's not going to be till later on this afternoon, I may buy them and then make a second trip. Now, if you don't find anything, it's equally as important to ask them if they're going to put out anything. It doesn't hurt. They might say, yeah, we do have some records back there. We're just waiting to price them. Oh, do you have an estimate of when they're going to be put out? Should I go home and come back? Or do you think it's going to be put out in the next half hour? Just be polite and they'll tell you. So that's my number 3. Ask before you leave. My number 2, go often. So I generally will go on my lunch break to the local thrift store. There's one near my office if I'm in office. There's one near my home. That's how I spend my lunch break. And then I'll generally go after work. So if I'm in office, I will sometimes hit both of them, the one near the office and the one that's near my house. If I'm working from home, then I'll go do that. And that is my number 2. And my number 1 is look in the unexpected places. So there are, believe it or not, record stores that sell comic book stores that sell used records, consignment shops that sell used records, antique stores that sell used records, yard sales. Look for the unexpected places to find records. And you'll be amazed how many places may just have a little corner of records that nobody really knows about. And that's where you find some gems sometimes, because nobody expects there to be records at a comic book store. But there's one in my area. And a lot of times they have great records. And I always pop in there. There's a good chance that you're not going to walk in and find, the holiest of all holy grails. But the records at this comic book store are $3. It's the same exact price as Savers. So it's a great place to go and look. So look for those unexpected places. Look in the antique stores. Look in the, in the Yellow Pages or whatever, not the Yellow Pages, the Craigslist, things like that. That's my last thrifting tip. All right, guys, hopefully you enjoyed these thrifting tips. Stick with it. Hit me up if you have more questions or how I do these things or what my plan of attack is. I'll be glad to share it with you. All right, guys, peace. Rock out. I love you. See you soon.